Edition 155, Miami Hurricanes Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. Welcome in here for the next hour, where you get to your questions, your comments responded to by the one and only Cam Underwood from State of the U. And if I so choose, this is kind of my role. This is the one comfort and luxury I've got in the whole process, is I comment when I want to. Cam's on the line for everything. So he is why we're here. Cam, how are we doing tonight?
No, I mean, I appreciate that, but, I think you're giving yourself a little short shrift. But, yeah, man, we're a good tag team. But I'm good, just enjoyed a good day off from the secret day job. Excited, to get back in there, doing what we do tomorrow. Got some plans for Saturday, and Sunday and everything. So, I mean, I'm good, man. I can't complain.
And I know that there are some guys that have plans for this Friday and Saturday that you hope are wearing orange and green, like on a permanent basis, starting like in the fall of 22.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I do have a specific question for you. But before we get to my specific question, your review of what happened last weekend, if anything came out that hit you, struck you a certain way, positive or negative, and then looking forward, of course, previewing what is going to start transpiring on Friday, June 11th for that second big weekend. Yeah,
it was really just good to get everybody, outside opening up, as I've been like to say, and having people come around to the campus, both officially and unofficially, for visits. And again, the quick rundown: unofficial visits are paid for by the recruit and their families, and there are certain levels of engagement that they can have with the staff, but there's like a cap to that. Official visits are paid for by the school. You can bring up to, I believe it is 2 or 3, depending on who they are, family members or close associates, like your high school coach and direct family members. Everything is paid for by the school, and it is the 5-star experience of, hotels and, private catered dinner at the Rusty Pelican on Key Biscayne, overlooking the bay, and things like that. They can personalize a little bit more things. That's where you see the photo shoots and the attire and everything, and whatnot. So yeah, the unofficial visit, that again is, both of those are important, and obviously the more visits you have, the better. But when you're talking about big time recruits, I've always said you needed at least 2 visits, one unofficial and one official, because you need that person to continue to come to campus. And if they paid their way, then that really shows intent in my eyes. But yeah, so that's just the quick rundown for anybody who's wondering the difference in those terms, in terms of the visits and everything. So we had the cookouts, last week, Tuesday and Wednesday, the first and the second, where we had a bunch of people come down there, invite only. So really specific, targeted recruiting. And just the general chatter is that those went really well. If you look at the recruit lists of people and the pictures and things, because they all get up on social media, the kids tweet out, great time at the U, or I'm on my way to the crib, or whatever it is. All of that, it was just elite on elite on elite. It was one of the greatest collections of talent of any of the teams that are recruiting around. Much more talent than there was at Florida, much more talent than there was at Florida State, comparable to your, Clemson, Alabama levels of talent that were there. I'm not saying that we're going to have the recruiting class finally that matches them peer to peer, but you're getting that kind of talent coming through Coral Gables, and the better talent and the preponderance of that talent, then hopefully you're able to secure some of them to end up coming to Miami. So, in general, it was good. I think that we're starting to see clarity in the recruits' intent and the program's intent on who they're going after for what slots in which week. So Miami only has 2 recruits currently committed. Both of them are visiting this upcoming weekend. So you're really looking to fill out the rest of the class. There's some big names around. There's a lot of elite talent around South Florida, obviously, and just really starting to see, even despite, or maybe the program doesn't feel the way that the fan base or the sentiment on Twitter is about certain guys. And conversely, the, general fan base might not be as high on certain guys. and the program, has a different viewpoint. So really just starting to see those things again coming to the forefront. You've got things like Shamar Stewart, a 5-star recruit, came down twice last week. He was there on the first for the cookout, came back the next day. And that's big because he's one of the handful best players in America. He didn't take an official visit last weekend, did he? No, he wasn't an official visitor. But yeah, he was there twice. Nigel Kelly has been to Miami 3 times in the last 2 weeks. He's a blue chip defensive end from Dillard High School. Again, that's where John Ford went. Stephon Zayas, who was a DN for UCF, a traditional power here in Fort Lauderdale. Isaac Bruce went there. Lorenzo White, Michigan State, played in the NFL. Isaac Bruce, obviously, Hall of Fame wide receiver, St. Louis Rams. He went there to Dillard. So this is a school that has produced players over time. Also, one of the best high school basketball factories for men's and women's basketball in the state of Florida, with 2 legendary coaches through the recent history of their program. So they will get a lot of guys or players who are basketball players. And, you're 6'1" in 7th grade. You figure, okay, we're going to be in it. But then I'm only 6'4", I'm only 6'5", but I'm a post. But as all the college football, or as all the coaches say, hey, come from the hardwood out to the gridiron because we can use you if you're that size. Yadni Kajust, who went to Miramar, was that kind of a way when he transferred over as a basketball player, was left tackle, goes to West Virginia, is in the league. So this is a thing that happens. So too has happened with Nigel Kelly, and he's incredibly athletic, but he's been on campus 3 times in the last week. Things seem to be going well with most of the official visitors last weekend. Malik Agbo, the 4-star offensive tackle from Washington State, Federal Way, I think it is. Reports are that, that went well. Traquan Fagans, cornerback from Alabama, came over, had a great visit. His brother, I think it's his brother, and mother, I saw them all posting on social media, things like that. So, you're going to have more positives than negatives coming out of having multiple kind of visits. And then there's other camp days that they've had with underclassmen getting offers. There was a 2024 quarterback who will probably be one of the best or highly recruited, it seems like, between now and then in his class. And he was spitting it, as they said, and he got an offer from Miami yesterday for his performance as well. So, just you're starting to see the wheat separated from the chaff. And when you have on-campus evaluations and things like that, you're able to get that a little bit more. And again, remember, with the dead period, that means that there was no fall or spring evaluation period where the coaches could go to the high schools and evaluate and see, okay, has this kid grown? Show me the tape. Hey, I'm going to be on the sideline on a Friday night so I can get the feel and see how he moves. All of that was gone this last cycle. So you're really playing a lot of catch up. So it's like a huge data dump into the recruiting system of, we've seen this guy, he's been here, he's done this, he's grown, he's da-da-da. But yeah, I think everybody, including Miami, is kind of seeing that leveling as we're moving forward.
Miami Hurricanes Live. Cam Underwood, State of the U. Please join him and the rest of the staff on State of the U as we get deep into June. And we have been prepping you for a long time in terms of what this month is going to mean for this football program and, of course, programs across the country with all these official and unofficial visits happening. Okay, you kind of covered my question, but I'm still going to ask it in case there's something else there. So, by and large, these student athletes have a good time during these recruiting visits. How can you not? Even if you aren't strongly considering this particular school, or there are other ones that are more so, you got to love the attention, the activities, all of it going on. Mm-hmm. At the same time, every so often you'll get a situation in which, because of what's been posted on social media or otherwise, you get an idea that maybe it didn't go quite as well as it could have. Maybe the luster's been taken off to a certain extent, or maybe this is an overwhelmingly positive experience that has pushed this relationship to another level. So did you get any good or negative vibes past the typical, it's usually a good time, it's a good experience, hey, I got to don the gear and see the campus and participate in the activities. Anything beyond that?
It's really interesting because of seeing, we all talk about recruiting because talent acquisition is the key to the foundation of building a championship roster. So, I'm not the only person who follows or talks about or has opinions on recruiting. Manny Navarro from The Athletic has written a lot of great stuff. David Wilson from the Miami Herald, read his stuff. David Furones from the Sun Sentinel. Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald. Obviously, all the guys over at 247, Andrew Ivins, who used to be local, but now he's a Southeast Regional. Gabby Arudia, who I gave his start at State of the U, and he's transitioned over there. One of the greatest talents that I've ever had at State of the U, and I knew that he was short for our site. And then also David Lake over there. And then others, because the players that we're recruiting, other teams are recruiting. So you have a Billy M. Buddy from 247 who writes for LSU. Bud Elliott National for 247 Sports. M-Body 247 Sports as well. Steve Wiltfong, National, the senior national recruiting only guy for 247. I know I've given you like 8 or 10 names, but there's a lot of chatter and things. You know what I mean? The two really big takeaways that I've read and checked into a little bit are, number one, that, again, there might be some local players that are not as high up on the board as fans might like or want at this moment. Specifically, there's a defensive end and a linebacker from down here who both might not be as high up on the board as fan sentiment might have them. So that would be that. But it's not necessarily that it was a bad experience, but like as Miami is evaluating the potential for maybe getting other guys in these positions and where they're looking on the roster, maybe there's, the road diversion in Yellowwood and we wouldn't, that took the road less traveled, as it were. The really good thing for me, good things would be these three. Number one, Traquan Fagans reportedly had an incredible visit. 4-star recruit, cornerback, 6'2", 185 pounds from Alabama. Obviously, it's going to be hard to beat the home state team, but whatever, game on. Number two, Malik Agbo, I already mentioned, had an incredible visit as well. Has already said that a distance is not a disqualifying factor for Miami. So that's good. Number three, and the reason that I mentioned the LSU writer, is the widely known development from last weekend is that while LSU was widely thought to be leading for Shamar Stewart, that visit did not go smashingly for them, which is really good for us. Obviously there's work to be done. Obviously things can turn around, but it was very clear that whatever happened, it was not a home run official visit, knocked it out of the park, sign right now. That situation was not the connection between Shamar Stewart and his time in Baton Rouge. I got a couple friends who are LSU fans, so they're well, this is what we're talking about, or I heard from this guy who was, on staff and everything about the situation, and so hearing from that side was kind of funny. Not like they're wrong, but it was just like the other data input. So I would say, between Fagans, Agbo being positive for Miami in Miami, and then Stewart being negative for LSU but positive for Miami elsewhere, I would say that those are the three big ones from this past weekend, with the continual caveat that nothing is done until somebody signed. And though this seems to have trended positively for those three recruits for Miami, nothing is finished yet.
3 kids and a dad and others. We appreciate you complimenting us on looking forward to the show each and every week, and Cam's expertise and what he brings to the table, and what we do here each and every Thursday night. So thank you so much for that. Of course, BGPO Football Funk, thank you for the Super Chat contribution. Appreciate that, as well as a Clemson fan chiming in and delivering in the Super Chat. And actually, the Shamar Stewart feedback is the reason I asked that question. And that was the only reason I asked that question, was it made me think, okay, maybe not so openly or outwardly, but are there some other reads out there possibly?
Yeah, I mean, and there, it's always going to be, there's always going to be things going on, so it's going to be, it's like when you're driving down a straight road, you got to steer your car. You got to move the wheel just a little bit. It's going to balance. It's going to, just to keep it straight. Everything's not going to be factory smooth. So, there's going to be some adjustments that you got to do to keep things on the straight and narrow. So, yeah, in the terms of recruitment, there's going to be a lot of things that are happening. But you just have, again, all these data points, all these camps, all these visits, all these games, all these communications and things. You're just building up the case. So you're not single sourcing, hey, this one time, this one thing is going to be. Now, if you get a kid who says, a la Devontae Smith, when Miami was recruiting him and he was playing on a basketball game the weekend he was supposed to be coming on his official visit, and afterwards the recruiter or the reporter asked, hey, so you're here and not going to the airport really quickly, so what's up on your Miami official visit? He said, I'm here. I've been here. I'm staying here. That's it. That would be the single source to say he's not coming to Miami. You know what I mean? But that was also at the end of a long string of occurrences in that recruitment, is my point. So, yeah, it's not going to be only one thing. But, yeah, we're starting now to build that book for all these recruits, this class, next class, and even, hey, the class after.
We'll get to the other super chats. But first, this question or comment, I should say, coming from Sean Rounds, Kamari Rogers announcing very soon.
Now, that's one that's worth watching. Now, Kamari Rogers is scheduled to come to Miami for an official visit next weekend, I believe, the 18th. From Lexington, Mississippi. 4-star recruit, top 10 at the cornerback position. Absolutely an elite player, the kind of talent that you want to have on the roster. And things seem to be trending very strongly in towards Miami. I saw somebody else earlier in the chat mentioned Brad Tejeda and the interview or YouTube show that he is cultivated over with one of our competitor websites. And though I do not necessarily, not at all, represent that website, credit where it's due. That's a very good show. He's a very good person and content creator. I don't know that you've had him on here a lot. Brad put out the clip because he had someone related to Kamari Rogers. I believe it was his father, but I didn't really look into it further than that, where he was saying, the father then was speaking, saying, hey, I, as a stakeholder in the decision, I and my family and community are comfortable with him going to Coral Gables. So if there was a thing where you're trying to say, well, we got to recruit, because you always say you recruit the player, but you got to find out who's the decision maker. Is it mom? Is it grandma? Is it dad? Is it stepdad? Is it coach? Is it whomever it is? You got to get the decision maker or the approver on your side as well. Again, I believe it was Rogers' father. If somebody sees it or is listening and sees it in the chat to say otherwise, please correct me. Because again, I haven't dug into that because that's someone else's content. Even though I've seen it, I'm not a part of the creation of that. But again, he said that he's in with it if this is what Kamari chooses to do. So things seem to be going very strongly in Miami's favor with Kamari Rogers, again from Lexington, Mississippi, Holmes County High School, 64 overall, number 2 in the state of Mississippi, number 9 overall cornerback, I believe, in this class. So an elite player. As we're continuing through the month of June, I'm still waiting for these commitments. Hopefully we start getting it rolling this week because we got Quan Lee still in May. But I still want an average of 1 per week, and we're in the second week. So, if we get 1 or 2 this week to move forward, I'd be great with that. But anytime that Kamari Rogers wants to jump in the boat, early, late, day of, signing day, day before signing day, whenever it is, buddy, got a seat for you down here. You know what I mean? So, Sean Rounds, no, that's a great point. Kamari Rogers is somebody that Miami is strongly going after. And if he's coming to a decision in the near future, again, I think with an official visit elsewhere this weekend and coming to Miami supposedly next weekend, that could be positive for your Miami Hurricanes.
Sean, thank you for the question and then the super chat that followed up. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. contribution, as well as one coming in from Sean Green, not the former left-handed swinging outfielder for the Toronto Blue Jays and Los Angeles Dodgers, but I believe this would be Sean Green, Miami Hurricane fan. Okay. Marvin Jones Sr. was part of this class that was just announced of, I believe, 78 nominees for the College Football Hall of Fame. His son, legacy Florida State, possibility of him coming to Coral Gables.
I mean, I'm going to work for it. We're going to try. Marvin Jones Sr. is from Miami or the South Florida area, went up to Florida State, moved back down here because who wants to live in Tallahassee? But yeah, Marvin Jones Jr. is one of the best players that you'll find, especially at the defensive end position. He is one of a multitude of elite talents who are now at American Heritage and Plantation. That's your, just name your guys. Tarvis McFadden, Pat Surtain Jr., both the Wilson brothers, Quincy and Marco. I mean, the list goes on and on. Nessa Silvera was out there. Isaiah Joystick McKenzie, Sony Michelle. I mean, just once American Heritage decided to become American Heritage, which was really like, so Miramar won the state championship in 2009. We got Ryan Williams to transfer over from American Heritage that year. So really about that 10-11 time when American Heritage decided that they were going to go all in, it's been a movie on the football field. It's been just absolutely incredible levels of talent from there. And in that group currently is Marvin Jones Jr. There's a chance. We'll see. But again, there's so many elite defensive ends down here. This year is the year of the edge rusher in South Florida. Next cycle, 2023, all about wide receivers. Because there's a multitude of really all-American level, like 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", like not even your usual, pint-sized slot receiver guys. No, you're big A1 X receiver superstar guys. There's a bunch of them down here next year at wide receiver. But this year is about defensive end or edge rusher. So Marvin Jones is on that list, and we'll see which ones Miami really prioritizes and pushes for and has the connection with. And I think that will tell the story, but also when you have a guy of Marvin Jones Jr.'s caliber with his name, so already there's the barrier for entry. If you hear somebody who's, coach's age, like, oh, Marvin Jones, if you're talking to a casual fan, right, I'm 40 years old this August, right? Say, oh, Marvin Jones recruit. Say, Marvin Jones, Florida State, played for the that's going to be the reaction. So you already have a name brand because of the name. So a lot of teams are going to go after him because he's not your Leonard Taylor, right? Who ended up as a 5-star best player in the state of Florida, top 10 overall, top 3, I want to say, ended up at 247 rankings at the end of the cycle. But Leonard Taylor isn't Warren Sapp Jr. You know what I mean? So, yeah, he got there, but it wasn't like I'm looking at him. I remember when Pat Surtain Jr. was in 7th grade going to South Florida Express stuff because his dad coached out there. And it's like, oh, that's Lil Pat. Oh, okay, cool. I already know. And with Marvin Jones, you already know that as well. So Miami and everybody else in America is going to go after him, and we'll see. But there's definitely a chance. We just have to continue down the path.
One of my best friends lives in the Daytona Beach area, and I would say roughly 10 years ago, he didn't get a chance to coach this particular kid, but there was a kid in their league that they would compete against on a regular basis in this baseball league that was Ken Griffey Jr.'s son. So you can imagine everybody's looking at it's Ken Griffey Jr.'s son playing baseball. So you're going to be on high alert just to see.
It's probably travel ball with the names on the back. So, it was Ken Griffey the third. But, it went by Trey because, number 3. But, yeah, even as you see the kids run out there, like, Griffey 24. Whoa! It's one of those things. So, you have that name brand kind of association with Marvin Jones Jr. as well.
Please like the videos before you get settled in listening to Cam's analysis for the next 45 minutes or so. Please like the video. Share the videos out on social media. I say this all the time because it's true. Hey, if you enjoy the content, the analysis, the information, everything we bring, others will as well. So why not spread the word? And let's get a big crowd in here. We've got about 100 on the line. So we'll take a quick respite from the recruiting narrative right now. And Cam enlightened me this week on the percentage chance that Florida State has of beating Miami, which I believe was at 18%, according to Bill Conley, and which was formerly whatever it was, 42%, according to 47%, whatever I put it at. Yeah. That was adjusted to 23%. So at 18%, according to Bill Conley, for Florida State pulling off an upset against Miami in Tallahassee, correct? It will be. Yeah. Okay. Even in Tallahassee, only 18%. Tony Kidd, along the same lines, asking for a realistic percentage that Alabama or Miami can pull off the upset against Alabama.
Man, low. And again, we have to play our A+ game, and they got to bring a C or a D kind of game. I really think that's the disparity, because it's not even about Miami not being a good team. It's about being a championship team this year. And I still see a couple gaps on the roster. I'm not necessarily sure that this team has that in them. I would love it if they proved me wrong. Yeah, but I think you're looking at a conservatively. So if they were to play 10 times, how many times would Miami win, kind of a thing? Once. Like maybe 1 out of 15, 1 out of 17. I mean, yeah, I'm thinking 10% chance that Miami beats Alabama is probably the ceiling for what I would project. I would probably put it in the single digits, just because. So I'll give you the things. The disparity on the roster right now, the championship pedigree of the University of Alabama, and their current coach, Nick Saban, who's incredible. The fact that it's a spotlight game, and the horrible performances Miami has had in such instances recently. You put all those things together, yeah, I would say 10% would be the ceiling. But again, we're going to work for it. We're going to fight for it. And if they prove me wrong, I'm going to be loud about it. I will let you know that I was wrong. And then I'm going to continue celebrating with everybody else. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of that. But realistically, I just don't see that happening.
So everyone take note who beat me up for giving Miami a 9% chance of winning that game against Alabama. That Cam was right there with me. I went 9% on Miami's chances of beating Alabama. Keep this in mind.
9% is 1 out of 11. So that's we're right there. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 11. Like, it's not. Yeah.
And that doesn't make it a impossibility. That doesn't make it an App State Michigan situation. That doesn't make it. I think they're closer than that. Right. They're a top 12 to 15 team as it stands right now. It could prove to be different, of course, once they hit the field and start winning the games. But at least my projection is that Miami's a top 12 to 15 team in the country, and Alabama's most likely the best team in the country, and at worst, a top 3 team in the country. And again, just look back to last season and think about just the loaded roster at Ohio State. Think about how good Texas A&M was last year, and they got dusted by Alabama. Look at how good Notre Dame was. More solid than explosive like Ohio State or Texas A&M with that top-end talent, but really, really good. They just got controlled. The scoreboard didn't look ugly, but Alabama had no worries in that game. That's right. How good Alabama was last year. And also keep in mind, and I keep hearing this and keep receiving feedback and calls about this when we do call-in shows, that, Bryce Young's inexperienced and Alabama's going to take a step back. Okay, let's understand that we've seen this now for 12 or 13 years under Nick Saban with first-year starting quarterbacks like Jay Coker. And we can go through the line. Jalen Hurts just getting on the field in the second quarter against USC in a blowout game there. So I took that comment that I hear repeatedly, and I went through the 7 playoff years and even took it back a year because I thought it would help my cause, because Nick Marshall and Jameis Winston in the 13 BCS championship game with no starting experience, no pass attempts for either one going into that season. And these are the results I came up with. 8 of the 16 quarterbacks that have competed in the last 8 national championship games, 8 of those 16 basically had no experience going into that season. So it's not like, yes, experience is meaningful, but it's not the end-all be-all. Like, it's doesn't happen. Trevor Lawrence shows up. Shoot, the likes of J.T. Barrett and Cardell Jones with 0 experience showed up and won a national championship. We've got all sorts of Jameis Winston. Nick Marshall started in a national championship game. 0 pass attempts starting that season.
Nick Marshall, who had been playing defensive back at
Georgia. Yes.
You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, I mean, it is a factor for sure. But we'll see. But, you know, it is the first time against a live opponent for Bryce Young, really. That's having a game plan for him and all the kinds of things. But let's also not discount the fact that he was a 5-star All-American quarterback with an incredible level of talent. So it's not like you're having a substandard player out there. You just have an inexperienced, as in terms of starting experience, player who is very talented. And I obviously don't know what exactly they were doing in their spring game, but didn't he have like 5 touchdown passes in their spring game? And like that, you know, so like he's not been, you know, 11 for 37 for 122 yards, 4 picks. And, you know, that's not been his progressional path, even last year, scout team, spring, anything like that. So I will be interested to see if he's able to be the everybody's All-American that he was from, would he go to Modern Day, I want to say? Out in California, because he was committed to USC. I think he was a Modern Day kid, which is like usually the pipeline. You go there, you win the starting job at Modern Day, which is never easy any year, and then you go straight from there to USC. You get drafted in the NFL draft. There's many a guy you can look at who has done that, but he decided obviously to go to Alabama. So this is a guy who has a lot of talent. So yeah, you know, we'll see.
We know that, of course, we honor all the super chat comments and questions. I think there's only been maybe one in the history of my channel that I did not because of some kind of put down or profanity or something very inappropriate. But you're really going to have to get the Rolodex working on this one, Cam. BGPO Football Funk is asking, who is the U's biggest recruit of all time? Well, we can look that up on 247 Sports, correct? Just if we're just looking at the highest star rating in the history of the program.
Yes.
I think they have that.
They do. I'm going to click over there to commitments while I leave that open because I got to write this week's visit preview thing. Yeah, DJ Williams was number 1 overall.
Okay.
Chantrell Henderson was also number 1 overall, but DJ Williams was higher rated number 1 overall. And then you had Willie Williams, the infamous Willie Williams, who was up there. Ryan Moore and Kyle Wright, both in the same class, tops of their position, and then on down the list. But if you're going just in terms of that, yeah, DJ Williams was like, he was my freshman brother of the year. We were both freshmen in 2000. Number 1 high school player in America coming out of Concord, De La Salle in California, and just did everything for them because, you know, it's a medium-sized Jesuit school, but they have a great, obviously, football program. They're the one who went like 17 years without you losing a game or whatever stupid number it was. But yeah, he came to Miami and there was no room at linebacker because we had all seniors on that trio who were starting. And so we played DJ Williams at fullback his freshman year, completely and totally saying, look, we just need you to be on the field so you don't leave. But come your sophomore year, we're going to put you back on defense and like, but like as a freshman, like we need a fullback. Just come on, and we'll still run you on scout team and like we'll still develop you as a linebacker. But bro, come on, just get on the field. You're too talented to sit somewhere, you know, just to sit or redshirt or something. A current NFL player, Calais Campbell, was a couple years behind me, coming out of the Denver area, but he had not bulked up yet. So he was like 6'8", 215 or 20 pounds. He was more of a, I mean, he played basketball as well. He was first team All-State. because you're 6'8" in post, and they were like, "Cool, we're actually going to redshirt you to bulk you up." So there was the physical reason to keep Calais out for a year and then develop him for down the line. There was no reason, physical talent, intellectual, instinctual, other, to keep DJ off the field. So he played as a freshman, and then went over fullback as a freshman, transitioned over to defense for the rest of his time. So that would be in terms of just ranking. In terms of like importance at the time, obviously the Alonzo Highsmith, Melvin Bratton class, all of the guys in that class, Selwyn Brown, who I worked with in the world of education, was also in that class as a defensive back, many other people. So, excuse me, you'll hear of those. Though he was not a high school recruit, Bryant McKinney coming over as, the best JUCO left tackle in America and really solidified that offensive line, for the best college football team ever. The 2001 Miami Hurricanes, in case anybody was wondering. But was also on that 2000 team. That's when he came into Miami, same year as DJ Williams. So if you're talking about talent acquisition, Bryant McKinney, JUCO transfer, DJ Williams, number one player in America, coming from California, because we're the U, we're like that. The other one that I'll say, for me, for importance at the time, there's two that are more recent. And again, we've fielded a team forever, so you can look at other individuals as well to add to the list. But my other two from recent years, I will say, number one is Duke Johnson, because Miami was still not necessarily performing well on the field, and everybody in America wanted Duke Johnson. And he went to Miami-Norland, which is a literal walk away from the Hard Rock Stadium, right down 199th there. So it's not a far walk either. It's like a 5-minute walk down the street. So like less than half a mile. And he was just incredible in high school. He did everything. I told the story, famously about how I got reprimanded in the Miami Northwestern section because I was cheering for the accomplishments. I wasn't I don't care about Northwestern versus Norland versus Central. I don't care. I didn't work in any of those schools. I didn't go to any of those schools, whatever. He was doing incredible things on the field, and I was cheering, and there was an older woman from Miami Northwestern side who told me in no uncertain terms that was going to stop. But that was because of Duke Johnson's greatness that brought that out of me. So even in spite of everything else there's the whole bagman game, which exists. It does. There's just other teams who are like, hey, we can offer you a better experience in college right now because of the performance on the field, all these different things. And he said, I'm from Miami and I'm going to be a Hurricane, period. Don't ask me nothing else. And as a 5-star running back, a dynamic talent that he is, was and is, because he's still in the league, the all-time leading rusher at the University of Miami in 3 years. That was massive in terms of the addition to the roster at the time. So he would be one. The other would be a couple of years later, Ahman Richards, because Ahman Richards was that number one wide receiver who always goes to Alabama. He was your Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper. He was that guy. And he went to Alabama for visits and everything like that, but then chose Miami. And then he comes in and he breaks the freshman receiving record. He looks like everybody's All-American. He's literally jumping over dudes when he wants to. Even with the bad hamstring, he's still running away from guys because he was still like that even with the bad wheel. And then unfortunately had to retire because of the neck issue and whatnot. But at the time that he, at that position where Miami had not been getting a number one guys and all things like that, Ahman Richards and Duke Johnson would be my two recent most important or biggest recruits in terms of the need of the roster versus the performance on the field and people of their ilk from here going elsewhere instead. So you add those on with Bryant McKinney, DJ Williams, and all the other ones on the Shantrell Henderson, number one overall in America as well. All those guys on the list. That would be my short story medium answer to that well thought out question.
Now, for as much as we tout the validity of the 5-star ranking, not each individual case, but the bulk of them playing out, as we, I think, outlined just last week, and the just distinguished percentage of those players that move on to the NFL ranks. I would have to say that I am surprised, based on memory of the times that I have gone to the 247 for any particular school and seen who have been the highest ranked players that have been signed by that particular school. And case in point, the list that you just read off at Miami, which included some really high-end guys, but more so some guys that were okay players, but nothing close to the best players in the program's history or history while recruiting rankings have been a part of the equation. So it is a bit surprising to hear that.
I mean, everybody just doesn't develop, you know what I mean? And then you get guys who leave, you know. Willie Williams, obviously, he was number 3 overall, but he went around and, you know, did his thing. Arthur Brown, you know, was, you know, a top 10 guy coming out of Wichita, Kansas, but then, you know, he didn't end up being that. Reggie Youngblood, 5-star tackle, ended up being just a guy. You know, Kenny Phillips, next on the list from, you know, Carroll City, he first-round draft pick. Willis McGahee, two ranks down from that, tied with Leon Williams at number 11. Greg Olson next, Marcus Forston. Then you get to Leonard Taylor with the same numerical value as Marcus Forston. James Williams right there as well. Anthony Chickalo was a freshman All-American until Al Golden decided to put 80 pounds on the man and turn him from 230 into 300 something. 308, I want to say, is the high most that he weighed, whatnot. And then further down, Duke Johnson was only 20th overall, so he's number 17 on this list. I don't know about that, but I mean, yeah, there's just, you're gonna miss. Oh, and the one, not the one, but one of the ones that got away because he didn't qualify, and then he went to prep school and then signed somewhere else the next year. Still in the league, running back LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, wow.
Signed with Miami and didn't make it in. Yeah. And then he ended up, you know, staying home. We did it, but like, he's a guy that signed with Miami. I remember that. We had 2 running backs in that class. I think it was Greg Cooper and LaShawn McCoy. And Greg Cooper had a solid career here, you know, starting level player. Honorable mention all ACC, I want to say at the end. Blew out his knee, exploded his knee at that terrible turf that used to be at the stadium in Orlando, whatever they used to call it before they changed it to Camping World. You know, but yeah, it is interesting to see, okay, you know, the investment versus return on investment, you know, of getting these highly rated guys, versus what they do in a insert team here uniform, in our case, Miami Hurricanes.
I saw a statistic today on Twitter. I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but it basically showed a number of the high-end schools across the board: Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, all sorts of teams, LSU. It only had about 10 schools on this graphic. And it wasn't a very well-conceived graphic because it didn't show in descending order. It was just kind of haphazard, and you had to kind of do the math in your head or look at it and categorize it yourself. But what it showed is that it showed this is how many 5-stars were recruited and signed by these particular programs, going back to 2008, which would have been Nick Saban's second season. Why they selected 08, I think it was just outlined. They chose the perfect year to highlight Alabama's dominance, right. But they went back to 08, and basically you see the LSU's and the Ohio States performing at a certain level. Let me get back. I'll explain this a little bit better. They went the number of 5-stars signed, the number of them that reached the NFL in any way, shape, or form, and the number that were first-round draft selections by the NFL. And what you see is you don't see any distinguishing numbers by the LSU's and Ohio States, et ceteras. But on the high end, you see the Alabama excellence in development in getting them to the league almost all the time, and also making them first-round draft picks more than anybody else. And then you also see the complete underachievement of the University of Texas.
Oh, boy.
It was alarming the amount of 5 stars who didn't even make the NFL. Most of them
didn't even play a full 4-year career. I mean, they were on rosters, but like they weren't on the field.
Bad.
And, I mean, it was and that was one of the things that got Mac Brown up out of there, because like you're getting all this talent, but then you want to turn down to Johnny Manziel because you want to bring him in as a safety. No. He's going to go to A&M and play quarterback and win a Heisman, and things like that. So Texas has been one of the ones, and people will most closely say, Miami is similar in their lack of development. But I'm like, no. The lack of performance on the field, I would say those traditional powers like, oh my goodness, sorry, USC, Texas, and Miami, those 3 would be on that. But in terms of like 5 stars underperforming, no. Ours are not like theirs at all.
Yeah, USC's been underachieving since Pete Carroll left, but they've won a Rose Bowl. They've finished a few times in the top 10. Mm-hmm. They've won the Pac-12. They've been decent. They've been pretty good. Texas has been largely pretty awful. A lot of 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 type seasons. Miami's underachieved based on their history of excellence post 1980 to 15 years ago, but they haven't underachieved under their recruiting ranking that much.
No, not at all. To Raji's point, I did see that video as well. That walk-on receiver. I don't know who. I mean, but hey, there was a walk-on receiver here in Miami who was doing numbers. Not like that one at Alabama, but do you think that our receivers are going to do that? And those were one-on-ones. So like you're going to lose some one-on-one, even though he was on a different. I should be starting. Why am I not in the conversation of the best wide receiver in America? That's the performance that he had against the corners. Do you think that our receivers are going to do that? Do you think that we're going to have the protection to get the ball there? Do you think we're going to get the ball there? And what is everything else in the defense going to dictate and everything? Now, if you do, great. And if the receivers do that and have that kind of performance and everything, that would be splendid. That would be tremendous. I would greatly enjoy that. I just think that that's the outlier more than it is proof positive of exactly what's going to happen. But that's me.
Kane 9999. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I will post that to the screen, but want to get to this question here, or this comment that I think is a bit ridiculous. Rod here believes that Alabama's not going to be the same because we got to remember they've got a new offensive coordinator. I think he's garbage. Well, he is Bill O'Brien, who has a pretty good track record. I know that his stay as the Houston Texans head coach didn't end well, but it actually went pretty well. He established them as a winning football team for the first time as an NFL franchise, and his work at Penn State and other places. There's a reason he is the Alabama offensive coordinator. He knows what he's doing.
Right, and the thing, yeah. And like again, I need to see it before I believe it that it's not going to be the same for Alabama. It's very similar to when we were in the middle of that losing streak to FSU, and I said I need to not only see it, but we need to beat them twice. We need to beat the team on the field, and we also need to beat the mentality that they can come back from any circumstance or score against Miami, because they had over the course of time. So even that first year of our current win streak, why did Malik Rozier and Darrell Langham have to hook up for that touchdown with 9 seconds left? Because that lightly talented FSU team, who was 1 or 2 and 3 at the time of the game, still found a way to say, we know that we're losing to Miami, but God damn it, we're Florida State, and we're not going to lose. And we're going to ride this freshman, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to come back and beat these bums, and we're going to talk about it. And absent that touchdown, they accomplished that goal because the mentality that they could overcome any circumstance was still there. And so we had to beat it all the way out of them, not just the team, that and the mentality. So for Alabama, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to need to beat them on the field, and we're going to have to beat the brains out of them that they can come back from anything. Because look, all of you Miami Dolphins fans down here who are watching this, your beloved quarterback Tua Tagovailoa was one of the players who incited that comeback in that national championship game, or a comeback for them, where they knew, regardless of the circumstance, because it was bad, and the scoreline, because it was terrible, we can still do this. And then they went and did that. So even if it's different, even if Alabama is not Alabama like you're thinking, I need to see it, and we have to take advantage of it as well. So there's a lot that goes into that, but calling Bill O'Brien trash, I disagree.
The worst Alabama team that we've seen in over a decade was 2 years ago. They lost to Auburn because Mac Jones threw 2 pick sixes. They lost by a field goal, and they lost to an LSU team that was one of the best offensive teams in the history of football by 5 points. And those were their 2 losses, and that's the worst we've seen.
Right. So even if they're trash or not the same would be that team from 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, because you would put that as an outlier to the excellence that we've seen from them recently. Again, I know this is going to be a tough challenge. I know this is going to be a tall mountain to climb. And, I'm up for that challenge. I just am not sure logically at this time, having not seen things from Alabama be so very, 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 very different than they are now, that they're going to perform as poorly as we will need, and we will perform as well as we will need to come out victorious from that.
That worst Alabama football team in over a decade was good enough that, at least for me, when people asked me when the playoff selections were made, and that was the year it was LSU, Ohio State, Clemson as the 3 undefeateds, and who's going to make it as the 4th, and Oklahoma earned it. I believe it was pretty clear-cut as the only other conference champion with just 1 loss, that I answered people's questions this way. Oklahoma earned that 4th playoff spot. I don't have an issue with the playoff. It was rightly selected. They earned it. But who's the 4th best team in the country or in that top 4? My money, if I had to stake my mortgage or my life on it, I'd put Alabama in there. They're not going to be losing to LSU by 5 touchdowns at halftime in the college football playoffs. So that's the floor. So it's a pretty remarkable floor. Falconer X, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. We appreciate it so much. Back to watch my favorite dynamic duo, Cam and Mark. Appreciate that, Falconer X. You're always here for us. Thank you so much for that. It's been cited here a few times that Miami has a 17.5% chance of defeating Alabama. Don't know where people are pulling that from.
There's Miami's a 14 point under, 15, 17 point underdog.
It's
something like
17.
That. Yeah, something like that.
Oh, I think people are confusing 17.5 points with 17.5. I've seen 17.5%.
Yeah.
The line's 17.5.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I believe the thing is. Yeah.
Falconer X. Jumping on in here again with the super chat. Appreciate that so much. If you watch the content, support the channel. The Amazon link costs you nothing, or throw $1 or $2 at the boys. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that encouragement, sir. All right. Anything else from you folks out there? Somebody hearkening back to the 92 season, 93 Sugar Bowl, which, of course, these two teams played twice in the span of, I believe, 4 seasons, maybe 5 seasons, if I'm not doing the math. Miami won a national championship at the Sugar Bowl against a Derek Thomas-led Alabama team. I believe the score was 33-25. And then a few years later, Gino Torretta had an off night, and Alabama's defense got after him and won it 34-13. Yeah. That shocked a lot of people. I believe that was a double-digit spread in Miami's favor, and surprised me.
Yeah.
getting folks in from New Hampshire enjoying the show. Thanks, everyone, for hopping on board. All right, why don't we make our way to the college football playoff? Have you had a chance to look at the particulars of the proposed 12-team system?
Only the top bullet points. I have it open in another tab here. But, yeah, the big things that I took away were the 6 conference champions, or highest rated of the conference champions. Those 6 would be automatically in, and then 6 at larges. I love the fact that that means that Notre Dame would be disqualified from having a top 4 seed for a bye, because it would be the top 4 conference champions would be 1 through 4, which would get a first round bye. And I was thinking about it when I heard it, because I stepped out earlier for lunch, and I was just like, okay, so 12, why would you not go to 8? And so if 12, that means you've got to have buys in there, but it couldn't be 2, so it would have to be 4. So you'd have 4 buys, then the other 8 would play, and then that would slot into how you would go with the top 4 or the top 8 for the quarters. So there'll be those 4 games, and then to the semis and finals and whatnot. I saw a little bit of the timeline and everything, but yeah, that's the general overview or whatever that I was able to look at until I get to dig into it a little bit later.
This is what I like. This is what I don't like. What I like is it affords other teams the opportunity to compete for a national championship. I like that all the conferences will be represented. And as Cam outlined, it's the top 6 conference champions in regards to the rankings. People don't confuse that with being automatically the Power 5 champions plus a 1 group of 5. That's not necessarily going to be the case. I got to kind of think that we would have to go back years and years and years and years and years in history to find where that would not be the case.
Right.
The Power 5 plus the top group of 5 champion. What I don't like are the buys. This is the reason I don't like buys. I'm not crazy about them in the NFL, but I think they work for this reason. There's an objective system that selects the buys, not people are selecting the buys. So the objective system distinguishes that the New England Patriots, as a 14-2 division champion, earned that bye over the Pittsburgh Steelers with an 11-5 record that won a division, because their body of work against the opponents can be evaluated on a fair basis because the schedules are so similar. You know, you're talking about teams from the same conference that play divisions in, let's say, the AFC. They're playing 10, 11, 12 games against the same teams. And then the other 4 or 5 games that are different are against very similar opponents. So I think the bye system is fair and equitable. And it's obviously objective. It's not selected. It's determined by criteria. This is, and so then this is where I think the unfairness of the bye system plays out, Cam. Let's say it's the selection Sunday after the conference championship games. And I will assign teams to the scenario. The teams mean nothing. But let's say Clemson, as a 4 seed, being the 4th of those teams that receive a bye, received at the bye, and they will play the winner of the Oklahoma-Oregon game.
Okay.
So here we are 2 weeks before this Oklahoma-Oregon first-round game, and let's say 3 weeks before Clemson will have to play the winner of that game.
Yeah.
So, number one, the obvious point is that the team that receives the bye gets the automatic bye. They have won, in quotes, the game to move on to the second round. They do not have to play. The other 2 teams risk losing. They have a 50% chance of not being able to play that game. So that's a huge disadvantage, obviously, just having to play and risk losing, number one. Number 2, your team's going to get nicked up and beat up to some extent. They're going to have to play a quality opponent. They're going to play a tough game. Okay, that's going to beat them up to some degree. Number 3, beyond just getting nicked up, beat up, bruised up, there's the possibility that one of your best players or 2 of your best players get hurt, knocked out of the game, will not be able to participate in that second round game.
Mm-hmm.
And then point number 4 that I don't think gets taken into consideration is that Oklahoma and Oregon, under this scenario, are going to have to be laser focused on each other. They are playing. They cannot just say, we can win that game. Let's start planning for Alabama or Clemson, I think, in my scenario.
Yeah, Clemson.
No, they gotta be laser focused and pour all their resources, all their attention into defeating that first round opponent, while Clemson can sit for 3 weeks and game plan half for Oklahoma, half for Oregon. I see that as a huge advantage. And that team that received the bye didn't earn it objectively. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It makes sense. You know, it is a subjective process, but in the world of college football, there are always subjective processes that we do have to deal with. But no, you do make some good points, especially about future scouting. And more importantly for me is the body clock and injuries kind of a thing. To Allison Corvallis' question, the Miami fan base is smaller than most because the school is very small. So in terms of your large nationally known programs, and you're going to have a larger percentage of the a very large percentage of the fan base did not actually attend the institution. And that's the difference of the makeup of the Miami Hurricanes fan base than others. So it's very similar in a way to USC. Again, a smaller private school in a metropolitan area that has similar kind of concerns for the size of and veracity of their fan base. It's going to be a lot more people in the local area who did not attend the institution. So it's very similar with Miami. And yeah, because when you have, a 50,000 or, 40,000 person school, you're going to be graduating 12,000 or more pretty much alumni based fans every single year. Whereas, you're going to be graduating from, I'll just use Michigan as an example because I'm from there, but the University of Michigan will graduate as many or more people per year than attend the University of Miami in total. That's your scaling. But back to the playoff question. Yeah. I get where you're coming from with not liking the buys. I would rather just see them go to 8 personally and go from there. I've been watching a lot of chatter on the internet. Somebody brought up to Bud Elliott was a good point that, teams who could potentially make the playoff at 12, right? Because you're going to have at-large bids, which means anybody from any conference. So you've already lost a game or 3, but now you're looking for, some of these maybe mid-majors, these group of 5 teams, you're looking for them to lose now. So now I'm watching more at American. I'm watching more Mountain West. Excuse me. So I'll center myself. I'm a Miami fan. We're 9-3 in a given season, right? But we're hovering around 16 in the rankings because of who we beat and who we lost and when. So I'm hopeful maybe that if we get to the ACC championship game and win, or something like that, that we can get into that. Well, if we don't win, and so yeah, we're 10-2 going in, so it's a better scenario. So 10-2, if we lose, we'll have a 3rd loss. Who do I need to lose to make my circumstance or my argument better? And if I'm not looking at the automatics because they're automatics, so there's no controverting that placement. Now, yeah, I might watch more college football from more places and more teams that I wouldn't otherwise watch. So I think that in terms of that can be a positive. But I mean, I'm a traditionalist. I didn't want the BCS or the college football playoff when they were introduced. So because I just wanted the bowls, and then you do that and you vote, and that's what I would have personally preferred. Oh yeah, no, true story. I've adapted and come along to enjoy what we have, but that was not my initial desire.
You like people voting at the end of the year for the national championship?
I did. That there was that, and then I went the polar opposite and said we should just have 64-team tournament because every other sport at the college level does, and had a very spirited back and forth with a couple people, including Bomani Jones from ESPN at the time, because he's obviously someone who's not for that. And we had some dialogue on that. This is years ago at this point. But yeah, so I think that eight makes more logical sense because you alleviate all these bye concerns that you're talking about, right? But for let's just call a spade. For the money and the television show, 12 is better. Why? Because if I go to 12, that means I get more episodes, which means I get more money and everything like that. So I understand the foundation for it. And the earliest it would be 2023 anyway. But yeah, get prepared because that's definitely coming down the line.
What I like about the voting is that it's not pretending to be something it's not. I don't agree with it, but it was what it was. We are voting for the national championship, not we have this BCS series. Well, none of those games are related. It's not a series. It's not the bowl championship series. It's a bunch of fancy games with highly ranked teams playing a game, games that are not connected or in any such way. And then there's one championship game in which I'd never agreed with the formula that determined that game. Therefore, I thought it was a bit of a farce, where previously it was what it was. We voted for the national championship.
But again, talking about previously, it's all television. No, they weren't linked. They weren't anything. And you worked in television for a long time. You understand content creation. Yeah, this is the Bowl Championship Series. And previously on, if you didn't see, there was da-da-da. What does that have to do with right now in the national championship game? Nothing. But I just want to tell you that previously on of this TV show series is, and that's, but when you look at it that way, yeah. But I mean, it was, But yeah, so like it, love it, hate it, get used to the 12 because it's been recommended and it's going to happen because the College Football Playoff Committee, again, putting on a television show, and the television show is football, and it is really largely inconsequential of who plays. But the fact that you have more episodes, i.e. more games of this show, means more money. So, yeah.
You got to wonder. I think we would both be fascinated, and most of the people on the chat, to know what kind of models they ran through, because they said that they were going to consider 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. They were going to consider all those. So they ran through models and said, if we take it to 16, look at some of these matchups, or look at some of this, or look at some of the decisions we would have to make, or whatever. And you know what else bothers me? And as an Ohio State guy, it shouldn't bother me because it would play out pretty well. Look at what one of the criticisms of what we've got right now is that the same three teams generally make the playoffs. Well, those three teams, and maybe some others, Georgia, Oklahoma, whomever it turns out to be in the future when things change and other teams become dominant, but look at what it is now, they're going to get protected by these buys.
Yeah. And I mean, it was also, I forget who it was. It might have been Bill Connolly. It might have been another writer. I don't remember exactly, but I did see it come down the timeline that if 12 had always been the thing for the college football playoff, a full third, 39 different teams, a third of FBS football teams would have made the top 12 playoff, including your Miami Hurricanes at number 10 in 2017. So, if it was always 12, so many more teams would have made it. And you're even looking maybe outside who 12 would have been for some undefeated champions. You're looking at, Memphis's and UCF's and things like that, conference champions making it into these things. So it does help that parity. And again, it is more, I would say it could be better for these conferences and teams and things like that. But yeah, you're going to have teams that are going to get protected by those buys. And to your point again, it's the buy process, though they will say it's not, it is inherently going to be political, because you might have, that 1 and 2 might be clear. Sure, fine. We're not. Those are the best 2 teams in the country. Those are seeds number 1 and 2. We're going to put them at the opposite sides of the bracket and hope at the end they meet for the championship. That's obviously going to be the hope as we are scheduling this. But I got 5 teams or 6 teams with a legit claim to be 3 or 4. And 2 of them are going to be 3 and 4. And the other 2 to 4 of those in that group are now going to have to play week number 1. It is still going to be messy. Like if you were looking, if you person watching this were looking for whatever happened with the college football playoff to be like, hey, this is going to be easy, simple, and clean. I got news for you, boss. Content creation doesn't really happen on easy, simple, and clean. And all of these, I mean, hell, state of the U, even what I do, I would love it if we were Alabama, like 1 by 50, here goes the rundown, drop the ball, do some push-ups, he missed a block, put him in the second line, okay, cool, bye. It would be great, but across the industry of content creation surrounding this sport, that is not what would be good. And you want to engender the conversation across all media. Think, you got Fox Sports, you got radio, you got podcasting, you got blogging, you got all of this. And that's going to trickle down. And again, all these cottage industries that surround that, they're going to be driven and monetized as well. But, college football wants there to be eyes there. You know what I mean? They want to have the focus. And to Mark's point, about, some teams are going to get protected and other teams, by definition of not being protected, are going to get screwed. That's going to happen. And we're all going to talk about it. And we're going to say, how great it is or how stupid it is. But that's part of the presentation as well. And I didn't even know, or I didn't really look at this because I was assured that whatever expansion was going to come. But I didn't even know that they were looking at all the different numbers of teams for the expansion that you said. So, it would be interesting to see what the methodology was that led them to the final conclusion.
So with 6 conference champions making it, we're talking again, it's going to be the Power 5 plus 1, and then 6 wild cards.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there's going to be some kind of argument. Okay, this team finished number 13 in the country. They are just as good or better than number 12. So that will continue. But basically, the argument, the big argument's going to shift, as you just noted, from who made it and who missed it to who received these buys.
Yeah. No, and I mean, but there's still, and the more that I'm thinking about it and talking about it with you, it's really kind of ingenious because you're still going to have the who made it, who missed it as well. You know what I mean? You're going to have all of that because, what's to say, my team at number 13 and we beat and they lost to whomever. And I know we lost to whomever, but we were missing Why are you saying 13, 14, 15? You know what I mean? We all have a claim in our own ways to be there over 10, 11, and 12. So WTF and so you're going to have who missed the buys or who was not protected or whatever you want to call it, who didn't get a buy, and then who made it and who didn't. And then you're looking, also at the bottom end, remembering that the top 4 get a bye. So if you're number 12, you're playing number 5. You know what I mean? So, and maybe that's a really good matchup for you. Maybe not. There's literal levels to this.
At least the excuse is taken away, though, in regards to, I'll just pick out one of the many arguments that we've seen. 2018, Oklahoma gets in at number 4, 13-1. Ohio State out at number 5, 13-1. They both win a major conference. They both go to 13-1. Yada, yada, yada. How do you separate them? Well, you've eliminated the argument in terms of win your conference and you are in versus now a conference champion, at least one gets left out, sometimes 2 if Notre Dame's involved.
Yep.
So at least that you can basically answer anyone who gripes by saying, win your conference and you'll be in. Unless you're the Sun Belt Conference. But, win the major conferences, you're in.
Right. Yeah, that will be interesting. But as I'm like I said, I didn't even get to really go over it, but I think this has been a good conversation. I know I'm thinking of some different things. Hey, it's 8/17. It's my birthday. Turn up. I'm thinking about some different things along the path of that as well. And hey, whatever. It's going to happen. So again, even if I, way back when, did not even want the BCS or to get away from the just straight bowl system to begin with, I live in this world, so I've come to terms with it, and I hope that everybody else does as well.
Family, we'll let you go. Of course, you've given us more time than you need to, but we got 2 quick super chats. Phil, thank you so much for the contribution. What year does Florida State Miami play in the ACC championship game against each other?
I will. You can call me a cocky Miami fan or not, and I don't care. But I'm going to say what I'm going to say. This is more on Florida State at this point than it is on Miami.
Sure it is.
And not even just on Florida State alone. You got the monster known as the Clemson Tigers in your division. And Florida State right now, to use, the colloquialism of the kids, they're down bad. It's not great right now for them. And Clemson is operating at historic levels of excellence. So you not only need to improve on your end, they need to come down the mountain a little bit to have a chance. So, yeah, it's more on Florida State than it is on us. I would say no time before this is the 2021 season. I would say no time before 2027 at the absolute earliest that would happen in my mind.
And if the 2 football programs, meaning not Florida State, Miami, Florida State and Clemson, continue to be run the way they are in opposite directions, who knows? 15 years from now.
Right, exactly. So 2027 is very generous of me to say, to be perfectly honest. You know what I mean? You could easily just say indeterminately, because and I've talked about this in the past, Clemson's going to fall off. I don't know when. I don't know which quarterback they're going to miss on. That's not another legendary player to replace the legendary players in front of them and things like that. But it's going to happen. I don't know when they're going to have injuries that really deplete them. And I'm not even saying, okay, well, Mike Williams hurt his neck and everything. Yes, there have been injuries, but program affecting, changing injuries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it probably will not only be one, it'd be multiple that really then change the operations of their team from here to here. It's going to happen. I don't know when. I don't know what game, but it's going to happen. And not even like last year where Sunshine had to miss the game against Notre Dame and they lost by 4. And then he was back in the playoff and whatever. Not even something like that. Because that was an aberration more than really a thing, because it was just, whatever. The coronavirus. We all know that was not necessarily standard, but who knows? Who knows? It's going to happen eventually, though.
Yeah, it is. But Cam, we've talked about the elites versus the next tiers and so forth. If Clemson falls off 10 or 15 spots, they become Auburn or Penn State, and they're still way ahead of Florida State.
But at that level, then it's possible for Florida State. Now, all due respect to professionals in the industry and scholarship players and everything right now, and everything else, it is not possible for Florida State. But if Clemson were to come down to, let's say, Penn State levels, it's possible. Not probable, maybe not even likely, but it is now possible that Florida State could get them leap over. And again, that's only focusing on those 2 programs. That's discounting Satterfield at Louisville, who, if he finds a defense, they clearly always have offense. You know what I mean? NC State, every now and then, they get to be a nice little plucky team and everything, and they're not easy to beat. The other fact that Florida State got to see us every year, so that's going to be an ACC loss for the next few years until they get right, as well. There's a lot going against them. But yeah, I would say, to the question from Phil B, it's more a discussion of when Florida State is going to be Florida State again than Miami being, I won't even say Miami, but being good. Because I think that Miami on the level now, we didn't make it to the ACC championship game last year, but one game goes a different way than we could. If we played that Georgia Tech game and everything, and then whatever game they canceled for North Carolina goes a different way. And North Carolina lost to Florida State, which is crazy. But you know what I mean? It was not completely outside the realm of possibilities. We're not levels away from being a potential Coastal Division championship. Florida State from an Atlantic championship, considering Clemson's over there right now. Ooh, boy, you got levels and layers and all kinds of stuff between, where you are and where they are and what's possible.
For a split second, I was just about to liken Florida State to Wake Forest. But they're not Wake Forest. They're not. Wake Forest is going to bowl games every year. They're going 7-5, 8-4. They're not Wake Forest right now.
Sorry, buddy. Facts are facts.
Let's rip through these because Falconer X is going nuts here. Appreciate that. He watched the 93 Sugar Bowl game with the Sugar Bowl jail in the stadium because I got caught selling my 4 tickets for $1,600.
Wow.
Great story.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you for that. Falconer X, you separate Oklahoma and Ohio State by the fact the Ohio State is fraudulent. So I don't understand that, but we'll take the $5 contribution.
Okay.
Falconer X, I think money may be a factor in the playoff system. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's a TV show, as Cam detailed. And then our final comment. Thank you so much for the super chat coming in from Rodney. It's the first time I've seen your name. Thank you so much for that. With Tyree coming in, do you feel Malik Curtis is still a cornerback coming in? Plus, who would you say is faster, Curtis or Travis Benjamin?
That's a good question. With Tyree, we don't have enough cornerbacks with Malik Curtis at cornerback. Have I been loud and repeated in saying that I believe that Malik Curtis should play offense? Yes. Is that going to happen? No. So, yes, he's still a cornerback. I don't think that we have enough players on here or on the roster at that position to afford to take him off that position. In terms of who's faster, Travis Benjamin or Malik Curtis, that's tough, bro. The Miami's had some real speedsters. You add in the Moss brothers, Sonoris and Santana, Daryl Jones, literal track star as well. Willis McGahee, a literal track star. He just happened to be 6'2", 235. Roscoe Parrish also ran track at Miami. There's a lot of fast guys who've been through this program. Philip Dorsett, 4-3 guy, verified NFL draft 4-3 guy, first round draft pick. Devin Hester, who didn't test that fast, but you never could catch him. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't want to go with recency bias and just say Malik Curtis because I'm thinking back at the highlights in my head. And Travis Benjamin, he had all them dreads and everything but them dreads would be flying and people would be diving behind him while he's out of there. So if they were in their prime, if they were the same recruiting class, I would put Malik Curtis and Travis Benjamin in the fastest man competition at whatever camp event. I would go 40 yards down, so I was at the finish, and I would enjoy the show. Because I believe that they're comparably, in terms of speed. And again, you could probably add 1 or 3 of the other guys that I mentioned from that list. I would line them up, and I would get to the end of wherever that race is, and I would enjoy the display of incredible speed because, yeah.
Liberty City boy, you have given us the honor of allowing you, thanks to your contribution, to wrap up the show for us tonight by saying, love when Cam's on the show, sup Mark. Thank you, Liberty City boy, and everybody else that contributed tonight. Thank you so much for your contributions. Appreciate that. You guys get it. You keep us going by supporting what we do here. Cam, appreciate it. As always, we hopefully can catch up next week.
Yeah, I should be around. There's visits this week, visits next week. Finishing up the summer calendars. I have all 3 of those things right here on my computer. So I'm going to send those out to everybody. So we're going to have a summer packed of hopefully great content at State of the U. So Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at State of the U. At the State of the U, excuse me. The website is stateoftheu.com. My personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports. I'm about to warm up some of my lasagna I made on Sunday and kick back, watch some Top Chef this evening. So bear with me through that whole thing. I got to write too because there's a visit preview that needs to go up tomorrow morning. I got to do that. Yeah, maybe Top Chef goes for another day. But either way, it's been fun to hang out with you guys for about an hour and a half. Appreciate the support, and we'll see you soon.
And for most of you, keep in mind that you missed most of this. So go back and watch it after it posts in just a few minutes with over 150 on the line. Thank you so much. See you next time.